Moving into a new home and starting a family is supposed to be an exciting time, a pivotal time in someone's life. But what happens when you move into a home and weird stuff starts to happen? Little things at first, but things that escalate to the point that you can't deny that there's something else, something not of this world, living in the home, not only trying to force you and your family out, but maybe even worse. Well, that's the very thing that happened to the couple that we're going to be talking about today. Not only did whatever entity that took over Elka and Jay Yapel's home try to cause harm to them and their children and their dogs. If you like stories about supernatural things, creepy things, and if you have a love of animals, then you're probably gonna like this show too. It used to come on Animal Planet and it's called The Haunted. Now it had several seasons, and pretty much the theme of the show was telling hauntings through the perspective of like how animals sense these, entities and spirits and whatnot. So many of these stories would send chills down my spine. So for Halloween this year, what I want to do is I want to share a variety of different stories and videos with y'all of things that really kind of creep me out. And so for this episode, this is going to be my first installment in this, we're going to talk about a specific case on that show. Now, if you want to watch the actual episode, I'm going to link it down below. The episode is called Demon House, Season 1, Episode 5. Now, this story has been told on multiple different shows at this point. This is allegedly one of like the most haunted houses around this area. So I watched several different shows on this, and honestly this is the one that always resonated with me, so I'm going with this version of it. With that being said, let's get into it. So Jay and Elka Yapel, they're expecting twins. They're really excited to start this new life, and they end up buying this house in Enfield, Connecticut. They really liked the area, they felt like the schools were good, they felt like it was an overall good place to raise a family. So this house that they bought was over 200 years old, and it was built around 1771. So it has a lot of history, a lot of people that have come and gone in this home. Now, not only were they expecting twins, but they also had a couple of four-legged babies already. Mandy and Gizmo, these little Yorkies that they had. Now, Elka, the wife, she did say, you know what? I didn't get a good vibe off this house, and honestly, I really didn't want to buy it. She's like, but you know what? I went against my gut, and I allowed myself to be talked into it. And she even says of her dogs, Mandy and Gizmo, she was like, they were even nervous when we first moved in. They were like going from room to room, and even though like this is a normal thing that pets are gonna do, dogs, cats, whatever, she was like, there's just something a little bit extra about it. Something seemed off. She said that the dogs would like jump around a lot, they bark a lot, they never really could settle, and she said a lot of times they would start barking as if something or someone was there, but there was nothing there. And so again, she kind of just wrote this off like, you know what, it's a new place, they're just hyper, these are kind of easily excusable things, and so they moved along. So several months go on like this, and then the first event, the first big thing that comes up of, oh my God, something's not right. So remember, Elka is pregnant, and she was doing something, and she was going down this little set of stairs that they had from like a screened-in porch. And she said that all of a sudden she fell, and kind of like it felt like someone pushed her, and she fell and landed on her belly. Where her husband was there, and he said it looked like the way that her arms went, they flailed out. He said it looked like someone had just come up and shoved her as hard as they could, and she fell and landed on her stomach. Obviously, this was really, really scary. Now, they took her to the hospital, they went and got everything checked out, and the babies were fine. But from that point forward, the doctor put her on bed rest. She said for the rest of the pregnancy, she would sit upstairs by herself in bed with the dogs, Mandy and Gizmo, while her husband was off at work. So one day, she said, while she was alone up there in the room, the dogs are extra restless, they're extra barky, extra nervous, and just acting up. And so she said they started barking at one point to the extent that she was like, oh, you know what, it's my husband Jay, he must have come home. So she starts calling out to Jay, Jay, come upstairs, Jay, is that you? But she doesn't get a response, and she keeps hearing something now herself. So she feels like, yes, something's going on. So she gets up to start walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden she sees a silhouette of a big dog coming from around the corner. She said as fast as this happened, her body tensed up. There's not supposed to be a big dog. There's not supposed to be anyone in the home. And so her body, got ready for this big dog to come around the corner, but it never happened. The silhouette just disappeared. So when Jay actually does get home later, she is beside herself, and she's telling him the story, and of course he can't really wrap his mind around this. He looks all over the house, there's no sign of a dog, he has no idea how the dog would have gotten in to begin with, and he's sitting here like, maybe it's the pregnancy, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. He's explaining this away, and Elke is just sitting here like, no, I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. It is not my hormones. It is not this. It is not that. There was a silhouette of a huge dog, along with noises, coming after me, and it disappeared. Well, this becomes a real sore spot between them, so she drops it. It's best just to maintain the friendship. And so she lets it go, and they just move on. So more time goes on, and they give birth to wonderful, beautiful, healthy twins, Courtney and Mackenzie. And of course, they're beside themselves. I mean, they have, their new home, their twins, their dogs. Life has started for them. Now, as with most new parents, they were like super overprotective. They had baby monitors everywhere, just to be able to know what's going on. We want to be able to get to them if anything happens. Now, Elke said, you know what? Everything went back to normal. There was no weird stuff going on in the house for quite some time. But eventually she does have to return to work. Obviously, she wasn't wanting to do this, but she had to. And so it was kind of a sad time. But they did everything they could. They found a babysitter that they trusted. And, as much as she could, she felt as secure as possible with the situation of leaving the babies with someone and returning back to the workforce. The nanny's name was Michelle. And soon after taking on this position, Michelle said, I started noticing weird things around the home. She would constantly hear something like someone running up and down the stairs, almost like a little child. One day when Michelle was playing with the two girls, she said that they heard something all of a sudden upstairs, and the two girls ran to the bottom of the staircase, and they started like pointing towards the top of it. When Michelle walked over to see what it was, she saw this weird shadow that was in the shape of a person moving up the stairs, and then it just disappeared. So that was it for Michelle. She was done. When they got home that evening, Jay and Elke, she was like, you know what, love you but can't do it. Here's my resignation. I'm not going to be able to continue to come to this home. Of course, this set, Jay and Elke back. They, didn't want to see her go. They ended up finding a new nanny, and life continued on. One night after everyone had gone to bed, Elke was awakened by a noise coming over the baby monitor, and it sounded like a banging noise. And she said at first she thought that it was like one of the twins had gotten up and they were playing with something and banging the crib or whatever. So she gets up to go check them, but they're sound asleep. Now again, remember, she's like, look, at this point, little weird stuff like this had become normalized in the home. So something like that was just, okay, whatever. So Elke, checks on the twins again, goes back to bed, and she said it wasn't too long later that she's woken up by talking coming over the baby monitor. And she says it came through clear as day, someone with this evil sounding voice saying, you're all gonna die, you're all gonna die. You can imagine this freaked her out. She woke her husband up in a panic. They ran into the kids' room, but they were asleep. No one was in there. Nothing was going on. It was all seemingly normal. So at this point, she's highly upset. And even her husband, Jay, was like, look, I could see how afraid she was. Like, it starts becoming real for him. Like, okay, whoa, this is, something is wrong. She knows what she heard, and she's not backing down from it. And this was a pivotal time in the haunting of the home. Other people, like her boss at work, this is the time where they start noticing things about her behavior, Elke's behavior. Like, it's affecting her deeply. So now, even though Jay was starting to be like, something's not right, but, maybe there's a logical explanation, he eventually seeks out, like, a town historian to find out what's up with our house. Now, what he learned scared him to death. He found out that there was like 22 to 24 people that had died in this home over the years. Now, these weren't like normal run-of-the-mill deaths. These were like major tragedies, major horrible events of people passing. One such was a doctor who lived there. Now, this was in the 1930s, and he ended up taking his own life in the living room there. Shortly before he took his life, he went to the home of a woman he was having an affair with, and he took her out as well as her husband. Then he went back to his house and finish the job by taking himself out. Now there was other deaths such as bleeding out, someone falling down the stairs, so many different things. Really only like one person succumbed to like normal natural death, and that was pneumonia. But of all these tragedies that Jay learned about, there was one that stuck out to him that made a light bulb go off. Her name was Elizabeth Arnett, and she lived in the house in 1919. Her death certificate said that she had fallen down the stairs and that the injuries led to her demise. And Jay said, "This is when I made the connection of the time that he saw his wife seemingly get thrown from the stairs, as well as this woman's experience." And that's when he started really saying, there's something more to this. Something is going on that's not good in this house. Then Jay finally has his own experience. One night he's home alone with the kids, and Gizmo, their dog, jumps up, he's barking, he's going crazy, and he runs in the kitchen like someone had just come in the door. And Jay said all of a sudden it was as if someone kicked Gizmo. He went flying across the floor. And Jay watched him skidding across the floor, and once he kind of landed, I mean, he was barking, he was so scared, and he ran over to Jay for protection. So at this point, Jay knows something's up. They end up contacting the Enfield Paranormal Society, where they work with a guy named Matt. Now, when Matt arrives to their home, he says, you know what, it was hard to breathe. I felt this heavy, oppressive feeling, and I did not want to be in this home. Now, Matt brought all this equipment with him, you know, to do like EVPs and anything you could do to really kind of see if a spirit was there. Now, during one EVP session, he asked, you know, whatever's in the home, he's like, look, is there something here that doesn't want the family here? And a really loud, ferocious bark came back when they played it back. Now, again, hearing this dog, this ferocious dog, making these, you know, barking sounds at them, Jay, the husband, made the connection of, wait a minute, you know, Elke saw that silhouette of a dog coming after her. So all these things start to finally come together. Now, Matt and the paranormal team, like, they're all making their way through the home, and they said it got super hot, so they go downstairs, and once they get down there, they hear this huge, loud bang from upstairs. Remember, the children's room is upstairs, so they all run back up there to the kids' room. But again, the kids are sleeping in their cribs like nothing happened, but now there's bloody fingerprints and handprints on their cribs and a shattered light bulb on the floor. Now, of course, they check the kids, they inspect them. You know, they're thinking, oh God, something happened. You know, the kids are harmed or whatever. But the kids are seemingly fine, and they had no idea where this blood came from. Now, in a separate interview from this, Matt said this about his time in this home. My investigators were attacked and burnt, scratching their kids, making blood appear in the basement, calling my name in the basement. This is the house that changed my life. Now, at this point, Jay and Elke feel trapped. They both know, they both are on the same page, that there is nothing good going on in this home. So, but they really aren't in a position to go anywhere or do anything about it. Now, they realized that they were going to have to work with another paranormal group, one that was more specialized in dealing, you know, really with this level of evil. They began working with a guy named Bob Baker, who was the founder of Paranormal Connecticut. Now, again, Bob was very much like the last guy, Matt. When Bob said that he walked into the home, immediately he was like, we're gonna need a priest in here. You know, this ain't good. So they found a priest that specializes in demonic cases. Now, later on, once the paranormal team and the priests meet back up at the house to do their thing, the priest too said, you know what, there's this heavy oppressive feeling, there is this really bad energy, it makes you not want to be in this home. Whatever is in here does not want us or them there. Now, the team also invited a medium named Paula, who specializes in these kind of hauntings, to come into the house and work with them. And Paula described as whatever was in the house as being nasty. So again, this whole team starts making their way through the house, doing their thing, trying to figure out who or what is in there. Now, when they go back upstairs, back to the children's room, the medium says that the oppressive, heavy feeling is the strongest in there. Now, while they were in there on camera, they caught an orb, which many say that orbs are signs of, you know, a spirit and whatnot. And this orb goes from the children's room into the parents' room where the dogs are sleeping. All of a sudden, the dog starts coughing and convulsing and going into some kind of a fit. They take this dog downstairs, and Jay and Elke are like, oh my gosh, the dog's, you know, it's not going to make it. So they take the dog downstairs, and the priest prays over it. They kind of, you know, come around, and eventually the dog comes to. So now later on at another session, when everyone comes back again, you know, this time Jay and Elke, they're ready for this. They want their home back. So they all go off and start off in the kids' room. Remember, this is where the presence is the most strongest. And they start up there, they're doing an EVP session, and a voice is yelling, telling them to get out. It doesn't want them there. But none of them let this scare them off. They went from room to room, sprinkling holy water, doing their prayers, doing all that was required to chase these entities and demons out of this home. So room to room, floor to floor they go, kind of chasing this spirit around. And then finally they can't find it really until they creak open the basement door. All of them would say the oppressive, dark, evil feeling was so strong it was almost unbearable, and they knew that's where they had trapped the spirit. Now, the medium said that this feeling, this oppressiveness, was pulling her towards this back, kind of dark, musty corner of the basement where a wall had given way into like a little hovel. And this is where the spirit was cornered. And they continued praying, they continued doing everything, their holy water, everything, and they battled it out with the spirit until that heavy, dark feeling was released. Now, unfortunately for them, the story doesn't just end here. This isn't everything went back to being normal. In fact, it's not really normal ever for them. The only thing that has really come of this is they said that they worked with numerous paranormal groups to get the nastiest of the spirits out of the home. But to this day, it remains haunted. In 2015, the family finally invited people into the home to see the kind of things they've been living with. They felt like it was finally safe enough of those really bad dark spirits, and so they had people come in. And this is what has led this to be considered one of the most haunted homes in Connecticut. Now, the family has said that they have been told it won't do them any good at this point to move away because the spirits have attached to them, and the spirits will follow them wherever they go. If you want to watch more of my Halloween stories, stay tuned, be sure to subscribe, and click the playlist that's going to pop up. Thanks for watching.